terms of just, this is a raw, not adjusted for cord cutting analysis here, right? And as we know, if you've been watching TV ratings, if you've been looking at TV ratings, you know that WWE is up, AEW is down. That's the main takeaway here. Before we get into reciting numbers and boring you, that's the takeaway here. AEW is down and WWE is up. Which W shows up the most? NXT. Which AEW shows down the most? It's a complicated story with Collision. It's kind of an unfair comparison. That's not to say that this show is actually doing great compared to, actually doing better compared to last year. It's not. Collision is down 55% in the demo, 40% in total viewership. However, that is comparing 20 episodes in this year versus 2 episodes in last year. Of course, that's the big debut episode, which is going to be the highest viewership perhaps in all of the history of Collision. It certainly is now. And the second episode is probably close to the second most highly viewed Collision episode that there is as well. So a skewed comparison here. Okay, let's put that aside. And let's look at Dynamite, which is really the flagship of AEW. 26 episodes in all 3 of the last 3 years. And we've got the demo down 13%, total viewership down 14%. So that's where they are. It's the second consecutive year where there's been decline. And in terms of the demo, this is the second consecutive year where there's been double-digit percentages of decline. When I look at LRG research, which is a guy who goes through the SEC filings of all these public companies, media companies, and telecom companies that provide cable and provide virtual MVPD, including YouTube TV and Hulu TV and Sling. LRG research shows that cable subscribers year over year, the latest we've got, I think, is Q4, and that's down 9%. And that should broadly affect cable in general, right? Because we're talking about cable providers, and that's going to downstream affect basically all cable companies. Okay, so that's negative 9%. That's less negative than most of the deltas that we have on this screen right now for Rampage. Now, if we can get into coverage ratings that perhaps look at how these networks like TBS and TNT are covering the country by month, we might get a tighter, a more accurate analysis, I suppose. In any case, we're seeing still a lot of sports viewership is up. Now, Dynamite is still highly ranked on its day. Collision and Rampage are doing okay, especially if we're just isolating to their time slot. Dynamite and Collision and PT49 are still among the most watched programs on cable in their time slot, in prime time, let's say. So they're doing okay. And Dynamite is still a really strong flagship show. Are we in the exclusive window yet? Are we out of the exclusive window for AEW? Are they still bound to talk to David Zaslav and only David Zaslav? Don't know. My guess would be July 1st, and we're past July 1st. And maybe AEW is now free to talk to the likes of Amazon Prime. And did you ask him? I'm sure he's not handling those meetings directly. I forget who the sports rights person is for Prime Video. Are they free to talk to Eric Shanks at Fox Sports? I could see FS1 being a reasonable potential home for some AEW content. I could see Amazon Prime Video being a potential home for some AEW content or some AEW pay-per-view rights or some AEW library rights. We'll see. Does NBA play into that? I still don't know. Are the NBA rights going to get done anytime soon? I don't know. Are the NBA rights going to be a prolonged process that is agitated by a dispute involving Warner Brothers Discovery and then some litigation over whether or not they have the right to bid for whatever, to match a bid that NBC or Amazon is making? Who knows? And will that complicate and has already prolonged the process for AEW, which is a lower priority than the NBA? Who knows? But we'll continue to monitor. In the case of WWE, despite all that terrible cord cutting that's adversely affecting and causing headwinds to AEW, Tony Khan is not focused on his competitors. It's interesting, isn't it? How whoever's business is colder is not focused on their competitor. As we know that WWE, when AEW was on the upswing and WWE Their consumer business, their fan interest was more stagnant. It was WWE that had blinders on, as Nick Khan would say, and was only focused on themselves. They're not focused on a competitor. They're not going to be distracted by a competitor. Oh no! And now it's Tony Khan, who's not, who I believe said it in his interview with Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez, that he's not going to let it what a competitor is doing, bother him in terms of WWE's ratings being up, despite cord cutting, which Tony Khan points to as a way to explain away the declines in ratings for AEW. Raw, SmackDown, NXT in the demo are now up in 2 consecutive years of January to June comparisons here. Of course, as I said, NXT is up, whether you like it or not. Whether you enjoy the backstage high school theater of NXT, viewers enjoy it, not just viewers in terms of total viewership. I'm focusing on the demo. If you look at total viewership, the story is more complicated, and we do have some flatness over the last 2 years. We do have a negative comparison, down 5%. Raw is in January to June versus last year. But if you look at the demo, everything is up. Everything is up at least a little bit. Raw is up only 3%. Only 3% in January, June, but still up, despite the lack of engagement, the loss of engagement in cable TV generally. And SmackDown is up 8% in the demo. Flat in terms of total viewership compared to last year in the same period. Okay. By the end of the year, all these shows are going to be on different networks. NXT will be on CW come this fall by October. SmackDown will be on the USA Network, no longer on Fox. Raw will be in its extended period by October with USA Network, and then it'll be moving to Netflix. And then I don't know if we'll ever see Raw ratings again. Hopefully Nielsen gets on top of that. We'll see. So that's ratings, right? Do we have any other takeaways besides this? I mean, it's kind of a moot point at this point for WWE. They've got their TV deals in place for 5 years at least, right? Okay. There's the averages. I won't read them to you in audio. You can look at them for yourself if you're watching a video. That's total viewership. In the demo, we did see some intersecting in terms of week-by-week ratings for NXT and Dynamite. The averages, there's still some significant margin here in the averages. In Q2, Dynamite averaged a 0.24 demo rating, to NXT's 0.20. There was 1 week, I believe in only 1 week, where NXT did beat in the same week, did have a higher demo rating than Dynamite a few weeks ago. Be that as it may. We are seeing, Collision settle out here. It's been settled at about the same level for 3 quarters here. Collision with a 0.13, up from its 0.12 sequentially in the prior quarter, up from, about the same as the 0.13 that it did in Q4. So that's where it's settling. It's settling in the low teens. I think it's on Every Time I Die album. Anyway. Rampage has settled too. And it's been settled in the low teens. Now at a 0.10, in fact, which is probably its lowest quarterly average that it's had so far. In any case, there's the quarterly averages. All right, that's enough TV ratings. I'm not going to go into ridiculous minutia of demos. Sorry. You can, subscribers, if you're a data subscriber, you have access to the spreadsheet if you would like to go into minutia of demos and look at what demographic information we do have there. Estimated tickets distributed. We will now rely on WrestleTix and look at WWE and AEW. Again, this focuses only on January to June because seasonality is real. The seasons do come and go. It gets cold, it gets warm, indoor entertainment, WrestleMania seasonality effect perhaps. Okay. And what we have here, high-level takeaways before I start rattling off numbers. High-level takeaways, similar to TV ratings. Is it everything? It's almost everything. Almost everything for WWE is up. Almost everything for AEW is down. Now AEW is increasing volume. Okay, well, let's hedge caveat. AEW is now doing a lot more events in this January to June than last year January to June. Overwhelmingly because of Collision, right? They did 3 Collision tapings last year in this period. They did 20 in this period this year. Okay. We'll get those caveats in. In terms of total attendance, Collision did 61,000 versus 19,000 last year because they did 20 events versus 3. Okay, but in terms of averages, Of course, that average is much lower for Collision because because last year in those 3 events was driven by a really big attendance at the United Center for the first Collision. Okay, but let's talk about what's the consistent measure over the years in January to June is Dynamite. 26 events in all 3 of the last years. This year, 2023 and 2022, 26 events, and total attendance is down. Average attendance is down, according to WrestleTix estimates. Average Dynamite in January to June was 3,900. 3,900, down from 5,400 last year, down from 5,700 in 2022. So, is that due to volume? Is that due to cord cutting? I don't think it's due to cord cutting, but it could be due to volume somewhat. It could be due to lack of genuine interest in AEW in this year versus last year, which I would argue is largely related to lack of star power in those periods. Anyway, pay-per-views. We've gotten this period for AEW 4 pay-per-views, which averaged 10,500. So those pay-per-views still performing pretty strongly, although that is slightly down 5% from the prior year in terms of an average, when they averaged 11,000 in 3 pay-per-views in the prior year. We know this period includes Forbidden Door, yes, which was at the very end of June, and Revolution, and Money in the Bank, and Double or Nothing, and Dynasty, right? Those are the 4. Revolution and Forbidden Door, both $1 million gates. The other 2, just over 500,000, according to Polestar data, off the top of my head, if my memory serves me. No house shows. Mercifully, no house shows here for AEW in this period. They did last year. We don't have those on the screen, though. Okay, WWE. House show, the average house show is flat, despite, I believe, most of those market comparisons being positive. But house show average is flat. Total house show attendance is down because they ran only 35 January to June this year. Only 35 house shows. Mark Shapiro's coming in. He's cutting those house shows down. 35 versus 46 last year. They did 46 last year. They did 35 this year. So 11 fewer house shows. A similar average. Pay-per-views. Oh, I called them pay-per-views. I did. I didn't call them premium live events. I called them pay-per-views. They're still on pay-per-view, even if they're not primarily consumed on pay-per-view. I'm still calling them pay-per-views. Okay. Premium live events, if you prefer. They did 7 in this period this year versus 6 last year. The average is almost exactly the same. They're doing an average of 42,800 tickets distributed. I guess this includes the WrestleMania number. And we are using the WrestleTix estimate of WrestleMania, which is like 70,000, which I don't know how to reconcile in terms of the numbers that I got from the Pennsylvania State Athletic Commission. I digress, though. The total is up 20%, but they did 1 more pay-per-view. Okay, the average is about the same. Okay. But that's only 7 events, 6 events. Okay, let's look at Raw and SmackDown. And are they doing... They are now doing, this is probably, maybe not a first, but the difference is more stark than ever, I suppose, between WWE is now doing, let's see, in the 6-month period, is now doing 50 TV events, what I'll call TV events, Raw and SmackDown, versus just 35 house shows. Further back you can go in time, the more the opposite is the case, I would assume, in terms of house shows used to be the thing that was greatly outweighing TV events, but here we are. Here we're on the TKO Mark Shapiro era, and we're probably going to less DNC markets and sticking to those big markets where you get big media revenue and you've got higher margin, no doubt here. Margin is code for profit. Okay, our Raw and SmackDown up there in terms of average, in terms of total, and we've got a similar number of events in these periods here. Raw is up 13%. SmackDown is up, on average, 17%. Raw averaged 10,900 according to WrestleTix estimates, up from 9,600. SmackDown averaged 11,800 in January to June, up from 10,100. So, what can you say other than, is W's business leveling off? No, not according to these numbers. It's still, if anything, it's growing. If you were comparing the seasonality, of course, the WrestleMania time period would be higher sequentially. It might be slightly down. Let's take a look at these sequential numbers here. In fact, I mean, you could say the lead up to WrestleMania is Q2, and then you've got the lead up to WrestleMania is Q1, and then you've got a little bit of WrestleMania time in Q2. And Q2 was up from Q1 for SmackDown. For Raw, it was slightly down. But nonetheless, year over year, what was Q2? 10-3 versus Q2 last year, 9-4. That's Raw. Last year, SmackDown, 10-2. And this year, 12-4. Year over year, these are strong, positive deltas. Year over year differences. I would ignore these year-to-date numbers for Q3 at this point. So, is WWE's business cooling off? No. It's still growing. Consumer interest. I'm not just talking about revenues and business partnerships that are being more efficiently monetized through media rights fees and site fees and other things that wrestling fans have basically no influence over. No. Ticket sales. Purchases made by wrestling fans. Still up. TV ratings looking good too, despite all the challenges that TV is encumbered by. All right. That's what I have to say about WWE business and AEW business at this point. We will move on